All right. Welcome to today's episode of Live with Sondra. I'm your host, Sondra Shannon, and we've got a fantastic guest for you today. But first, let me ask you a couple of things about your business. Let's talk about this. If you can, if you're watching live, because this is the part of the show where we wait for some of our live audience to show up, I'd like you to mention in the chat what is one strategic change your organization has made in the last year and how did it impact your team and guests? If you're an attraction or an entertainment venue that's watching, I'd love to understand more about whether or not these strategic changes have had an impact on the guest experience. So, to get started for today, we're going to be talking about strategic resilience and leading attractions through change and AI. And before I get started with today's guest, first I have to mention, because this show would not be possible without our sponsor, that today's episode is proudly sponsored by Gatemaster Technology, the trusted name in attraction management software. If you are stuck in clunky or outdated systems and platforms that slow your team down and frustrate your guests, it might be time for an upgrade. And Gatemaster is trying to make that real easy for you with Gatemaster's competitive replacement program, which they are bringing back. We're bringing back to make it real easy for you to transition from your old system to a new system with dedicated support, seamless data migration, and no business interruptions. We've been powering theme parks and museums and attractions for over 25 years, and we know what it takes to keep you running smooth and profitably. You can visit gatemaster.info/replacement to learn more and to schedule your free discovery call. At Gatemaster Technology, we are software that works as hard as you do. We know how hard you guys out there are working in your businesses and to take care of your guests. So please take a moment and visit gatemaster.info/replacement. So let's get back to the show. Today, we're again going to be talking about strategic resilience, leading attraction through change and AI. Today's guest is the president and owner of Steve Gavatorta Group. So, sorry, cat's out of the bag. We know who's coming on the show. He empowers individuals and organizations to identify, develop, and exceed performance goals. He's a certified professional behavioral analysis and certified professional value analyst. Something Steve can't live without. And I love this because I think this is the first time I've ever had a quote this thoughtful. Viktor Frankl's famous quote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space, in our power to choose our response," which this quote highlights the importance of conscious choice over our reactions to life's circumstances. And I'm really excited to welcome Steve Gavatorta to the show. So please help me give a welcome to today's guest. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And I can't believe you didn't roll the R. I'm really upset about when you said my name. You didn't roll that R. No, great job on that name. Perfect. I'm just teasing you.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. Hey, I before we dive into who you are, though, I really, I want to call out that quote that you sent in because I thought that was pretty cool, and I hope that we're going to touch a little bit more on why that's important to you. But our audience would love to know a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and I know that you are a man showing up the stats. So would you mind just giving us a little bit more about where you're coming from and how you've gotten to where you are?
Yeah, I'm owner of Steve Gavatorta Group, original name, right? But I just do custom-based coaching, training, consulting programs that try to solve for customer-specific needs. The core key word in there is customization. Each of my clients has very unique scenarios going on, different problems to solve, different customers and whatnot. And what I really enjoy is solving the puzzle, figuring out their needs, figuring out the issues they're facing and building custom-based programs to fit those needs and meet their goals and objectives, whether it be the full package strategic planning on down, or whether it's just soft skills, leadership skills, sales training, team building, dealing with adversity, things of that of those natures. Um, Kind of people are like, why doesn't he specialize? Can he do all these things? And I say yes, because I have a great background as well too. I've owned my business for 20 years. Prior to starting my business, I spent 21 years in consumer packaged goods industry, basically selling products you can buy in a grocery store. So things like Aquafresh toothpaste, Listerine,
Wow.
Dentine. Yeah, spent 10 years with a division of GlaxoSmithKline, 5 with a division of Warner Lambert, some time with a company called Catalina Marketing, then ended my career with a company people may remember, I'm not sure, called Eastman Kodak. They kind of went the way of the horse and buggy because their head was in the sand about digital. But through that time in corporate America, I did a little everything. I carried the bag. I was in sales. I was in account management. I led different sales teams. I spent time in marketing. I spent time as a liaison between sales and marketing. I led a team in category management, loyalty marketing, and then did some time in training as well too. So I have an array of background experiences, which enables me to be able to deliver a lot of custom-based programs I do today, because I live the corporate life. I've lived the various jobs within those companies I've worked with, and I kind of can feel people's pain and know their pain points and know things they're struggling with, and that helps me build those custom-based programs, so to speak.
Well, and it's interesting that you say custom-based programs because, I look at business. A lot of people look at business as their problems are going to be unique because it's in certain industry, right? And there is some of that in the work that we do. But when we look at the business side of business, I think it's very interesting with your strategic leadership approach and what you've mentioned here, how you can be in all of those different areas of corporate America. And you probably saw very similar things across each of those that led you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. There are similar things I see. Number one. Number two, there are similar skill sets that would be transferable across various industries, like a 4-step solution selling process
Yes.
or leadership skills, which cross various industries and various customers. So what I do in training and development is lay down the fundamentals for success, teach people of a 4-step process, or the fundamentals of leadership skills, or a plan for an outline for strategic planning. The difference is, though, is the customization of implementing those skills within training. So teaching those 4 selling skills to a pharmaceutical company may be very different than to a biz dev team in a construction organization,
Sure.
because their customers are different, the issues they're facing are different, and that's where I really create the point of differentiation for my business, because we lay the skills. That's a foundation right there. Then we apply those skills to real world scenarios these people are facing through case studies, role plays, interactive exercises. What that does, that hits that brain part and builds that cortex part of our brain. So we're making that muscle memory. We're seeing how these skills apply to my world, and that helps create immediate usage of skills, but most importantly, long-term retention of those skills as well too.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
don't I don't want to be a one and done with my clients and say, oh, this was a nice thing today. Then it falls out of bed. They never use it again. It does. I mean, it's nice for me. I made a paycheck that day, but it doesn't create long-term sustainable success for my clients. And that's what I'm striving for. So.
Well, and the thing that I've noticed is that a lot of us get some of these skills, the fundamental skills that you're talking about, but then lack on the execution part, which is probably where someone like you comes in really handy, especially because you need that accountability. You need somebody to help you apply that to real world scenarios. And I know a lot of the audience that's listening, certainly is bumping up against some of these challenges, but it is nice to have somebody who understands how to organize this and roll it out. Do you mind if I've got a question for you?
Yeah.
And the thing that I want to ask you is, given your experience in strategic leadership, What are some of the biggest challenges you see organizations facing when developing clear strategic vision? And it's a loaded question. How can they overcome it?
Yeah, well, let's assume that their strategic vision was done right in the first place. So we'll put that. Most of them are not done correctly. Number one, number two. Well, I'll give them kudos for doing them. A lot of companies really don't do it. Other companies do it. The
Sure.
third aspect of it is they do it. They do a great job. It's not communicated effectively. There's never reinforcement, and people don't feel accountability to it. If you've created vision, mission, values, your company, everyone within your company should eat, drink, and sleep that and see how, I don't care what role or responsibility they're in, how they connect into the vision, mission, values or the strategic objective, driving top line sales, profitability, or some sort of incremental growth objective. So everybody within an organization needs to feel how they contribute to that. Typically, things such as vision, mission, values, strategic objectives drive, again, let me repeat the three. What I talk about is driving top line revenue / cash flow. That's strategic objective one, because if you don't make money, you don't have cash flow, you can't pay bills, you can't invest and spend,
Yeah.
and all those things. Two is you want to be profitable. Number three, you want to have some sort of growth objective, whether an incremental growth objective, I should say, whether it's grow my market share, bring new customers into the fold, or have my current customers spend more money. Those are all incremental growth objectives. So everybody within an organization needs to understand how they may feed into that. Typically, is where I was going with this, is typically vision, mission, values, strategic objectives, leadership, sales, and marketing feel closest to it, because they're the ones driving the strategy externally. They're engaging with the customers firsthand, but underneath them is finance, IT, human resource, operations, and oftentimes all those other departments. We are on the same team working towards the same goals. Don't feel the connection to those. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I totally get it. Like with regards to a company's mission, which I think is what aligns most of the team. However, if that mission is in our case, our mission is to help attractions massively succeed, and that's and but at the same time, if you're doing HR work, you may not feel connected to that mission, right?
That's right.
I'm
That's
hoping
right.
that's I'm understanding you correctly.
That's correct. Because every department needs to understand we are working as a team together. You've heard, I'm sure, silo departments.
Yeah.
Those are created when people don't feel the connection to the vision, missions, values, and strategic objectives. When we all understand how we play a role in that, that's when we create, a robust company. So my point is, first, you want to create a strong strategic plan and a strategy. You want to communicate it out effectively. You want to connect the dots so everyone understands how they fit into the strategic plan, strategic objectives. And lastly, you want to reinforce things every day. So I'll give you kind of a funny example people can resonate with. It's not a vision statement, but it's a statement made by a Harley-Davidson executive. And I'll throw it out to you and maybe your audience. What does Harley-Davidson sell?
They sell motorcycles, food.
Okay.
Don't they sell in apparel? They've got all
Okay.
the goods.
Ultimately, but according to Harley-Davidson executive, what he says we sell is the ability for a 43-year-old accountant to dress up in black leather, drive through small towns, and scare people. What he's saying is, yes, we sell motorcycles, but we sell something greater. We sell a lifestyle. We make an emotional connection. And with that, very much what you were saying, not only do they sell a premium motorcycle, which I love this statement because it enables them to create a point of differentiation for themselves. Let Kawasaki and Honda sell motorcycles. We at Harley sell something greater than that. And that allows them to charge a premium price, number one. Number two, they can sell other things, like you said, the apparel, the boots, belt buckles. All those things are profit drivers, incremental sales drivers. It's a beautiful model. So where I'm going with this whole thing is I'm blabbing here is if I'm in a department and I don't understand that we sell premium motorcycles and we're building plans to sell a shitty, excuse my French, a shitty motorcycle, that is away from the vision of Harley-Davidson. We
Yeah.
sell premium motorcycles. We sell the best, so everyone has to understand that dynamic. So we're all in sync of what we're trying to, if we're lowballing price on our motorcycles, that's not a premium motorcycle. We forgot what we're about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I also love I love what you said about the example of like a 45-year-old moving into a small town dressed in leather, scaring the local community or whatever that I don't know the exact quote that you mentioned, but what that does is gives everyone this vision
Yeah.
of who that is, what they want. They can reverse engineer so much from that idea.
Yep. It's very
And
simple.
yeah, it's very simple. It's very cool. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. I didn't know that about them. I mean, I don't ride motorcycles, but even just hearing that
Nor do I.
made me want
No,
to.
I heard that quote several years back, and I use it all the time. I just think it's beautiful because it speaks to they've created a point of differentiation with
Yeah.
themselves with that statement. They can sell a premium motorcycle, which is a good thing. They're going to make more revenue from that, and then through that vision and mission that they've set up, they can sell all these other cool little items that drive profitability and incremental growth. I'm not just buying a motorcycle. I'm buying belt buckles, shoes, bandanas, boots. It's a great business model, and that's a smart strategic plan, and that's something that everyone within the organization of Harley can get behind and clearly understand.
Yeah.
And it needs to be reinforced down. So
Well, and I think I heard somewhere from somebody at some point. I think actually does their apparel might that part of their business might even exceed or match some. I can't remember what it was, but either matched or exceed what they were doing in selling the motorcycles, which was fascinating to me because your average person doesn't hear that name and think this is an apparel company,
yeah, that's
right?
right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I can't remember whether I'm riffing here because I'm passionate about this topic. I don't know where the original question was. I hope I answered it. So
No, I mean you answered that question because the question is, how can you overcome, not having that clear strategic vision? And this executive over there clearly says it in a way that he's now aligning all of his team
exactly.
and everything that they do can align with that, including the retail and apparel, which is why
And
they're
I,
to where they've
yeah,
been.
and I think I was alluding to also the reinforcement mechanism. We teach people training one time, and we expect them to use it and not reinforce it on a daily basis. That's the same with vision, mission, values, strategic objectives. If an employee deviates from the vision, mission, values, or strategic objectives, he or she should be brought back in the loop and reminded about what we do, reinforce why we do. Here's what we do. Here's why we do it. So it's building that muscle memory within the organization. It's not enough to create one. It should be you should create one, number one. Number two, it should be awesome and create a point of differentiation. Three, it should be communicated. But most importantly, it needs to be reinforced as well, too.
Yeah, that's interesting. The reinforcement part's very interesting because, one of the things, and I have to say this, after hearing that about Harley, it makes me want to maybe rework my mission statement to be way cooler than it is. But, I do think that what we do is pretty cool. But what I think is even more interesting is the reinforcement piece.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually a real challenge for businesses that maybe maybe they do have vision, maybe they do have mission and values clearly, displayed on their website, given to their teams in their handbooks. But, with regards to overcoming the not having that clear strategic vision, I think you're right about the reinforcement piece for sure. And I'm curious if you would mind giving some examples of what does that reinforcement look like?
Yeah, well, anything. Okay, I'll give an example. One of my clients it's a franchise. They do donuts. Let's put it that way. And their vision statement, I'll paraphrase now. It's something about creating smiling faces, happy customers, or smiling faces every day, or something like that. It's really bubbly, uplifting. So there's a lot of tension that goes on at those retail outlets, and there could be issues with the staff treating leaders in a store or region manager treating staff poorly, or staff treating customers poorly.
Sure.
None of that ties to a smiling face, happy
Right.
workplace, right? You are not eating, drinking, living your vision, mission, values in the daily workplace. So there's where reinforcement has to come in play. If a manager sees another manager barking out, creating bad morale, that is a misalignment versus our vision, missions, and it needs to be called out and reviewed and discussed. And same with if a manager sees someone grumpy with a customer, that's again not aligned to our vision, mission, values. That needs to be called out, and training needs to be conducted to teach people that, here's our vision, mission, values. Here's skills you learn from Steve in dealing with difficult customers or customer service, things of that nature. Does that answer your question? Give it
Yeah,
an
I think that
example.
answers the question a lot because, a lot of it, you're right, just goes back to proper training, right? How did we give them the tools to align them and reinforce this mission? You're right. If somebody's not treating, if a manager, and I don't like the word manager. I think I just saw that. I was listening to someone speak the other day, and they were saying that Gallup has a book. I wish I could remember the book that was talking about disengagement. And I'm sure, as you know, in the work that you do, disengagement is what is hurting so many businesses out there, especially small businesses that don't have that alignment. They aren't reinforcing that. But disengagement, I mean, what, 70% of employees are disengaged? And I'm sure that a lot of that goes back to what you're saying with regards is having that clear strategic vision. Because if you don't know, where you're going, what you're doing, and it's not transparent about what the goals of the company are, as you said, I think it's very easily to have people who become misaligned and or disengaged.
That's where the silos happen, departmental silos. That's where bad attitudes happen. And think about it, you have bad morale, high turnover. There's a cost associated with that. I think I heard that a mishire or a loss of a good hire can cost something up to 9 times base salary.
Wow.
Most companies don't realize the cost associated with bad morale or high turnover as well too. I just thought of another. I'll give you another example. Kind of, it's a high level example, but it covers a lot of industries I work with. But let's hypothetically say we've created a premium product like a Harley that we want to sell our customers. We don't want to sell our crappy lower end items. We want to focus on these premium items that bring revenue to them, bring revenue to us. The sales teams often forget. They get an objection from a customer, they chicken out, and they give something away at the lowest price because it's the easiest thing to do. That is not in alignment with what we talked about, and it
Right.
needs to be forced. I see that one all the time. Salespeople want the easy sale. They'll give price away. They'll get something low ball just to give it, to make the sale. And that may not be in alignment to what we're trying to do here. We sell premium products. We don't want to sell what our competition does. We want to create a point of differentiation for our company. And those are areas that I mean where reinforcement needs to take place. I saw a good visual the other day. It has a bar that goes, left to right, green bar, and in like quarter of the way in is a red line, and it says training, and there's then the work day, the rest of the time. Then it says professional sports. It has the same graphic, but it has practice, a little thing, game day. Practice, little thing, game day.
Yes.
Practice. So in sports, we know to lay down fundamental skills for success, and we practice, we repeat, we watch film, we reinforce, but we don't do that in the business world, and that's the thing where I think there's a great opportunity for companies.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you brought up sports, which I was just talking to my husband. He was mentioning, because we were talking about this, like you said, training is a big part, is like the biggest part. Who is it? Oh goodness, maybe somebody in the audience, maybe you'll know, Steve. that basketball player that's doing 500 shots a day
Right.
minimum,
Jordan was. Yeah.
and the greatest in the world.
Yep.
He didn't
Yep.
stop. He did it every day, even when he was seen as the greatest.
And I'm going to connect some further dots to you about to that Viktor Frankl objective or
Yeah,
quote.
please.
So in between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space, we have a chance to choose our response. What good training can do, what a strong strategic plan can give people rational thinking things to fall back on in real workplace scenarios. What I mean by that, I'll simplify it. If a salesperson does not know how to, he or she is not trained on how to handle a customer objection. You know what that is, right? The customer
Yes.
says no objection. There's a chance that if that objection comes back, the salesperson's going to panic. They're going to get angry, push back, or they're going to shut down. They're not going to know how to handle it because they were never trained on how to handle it.
Yeah.
If they are trained on that, they're going to have the foundational structure on how to handle that. So the stimulus is the objection. I have time to fall back into. Steve trained us on how to handle objections. Boom, here I'm here, we're going to handle that objection now. So what I'm saying is a strong strategic plan, good training, laid down, reinforced, can help that gap between stimulus and response. If I'm not trained, if I don't know where a strategic plan is, when the real world stuff hits the fan, so to speak, there's a chance I'm going to fall into an emotional state of freeze, fight, or flight versus handling it rationally because I've been trained on it or I clearly understand our strategic plan. I know our vision, mission, values, and it's not aligned, and here's how I have to handle it. So all this structure reinforcement I'm talking about can help us all make wiser workplace decisions.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And you don't want your team, you know, figuring it out on your customers,
No,
right?
no,
Like that's the worst possible scenario, and that doesn't make them feel good. That doesn't make the customer feel good. I saw a statistic recently. The number one reason people leave their job is because the lack of confidence in what they do. Well,
I
that's
wouldn't.
solved by training.
Well, one, I wouldn't doubt that. Number two, that's one reason I got into training as I did, because I had those times where I didn't know what I was doing and I was floundering.
Yeah.
Fortunately, most of my career, I did work for companies that trained and developed their people. So I know what good training is. I know the importance of it. And I know the other side of that table, where it's either no training or bad training and the repercussions of that. It's not good. It's not good. So,
Well, it's interesting. I heard a quote one time, and I don't remember who the CEO was, but they were asked, like, how do you value the return, the ROI on training your team? Like, what is the ROI on training your team? And he said something along the lines of, uh, well, what's the ROI if I don't?
that's right. Yeah.
What's the ROI if I don't? Which is why I'm so glad people like you exist in the world that are helping businesses do that, because that's probably my first. I love attractions. I love what we do at Gatemaster, but my first love is really business owners. I think there's business owners and people who are operating businesses and trying to do really big things with these big visions and mission. But a lot of times, like, the tools that you're talking about aren't first nature to most people, because in most cases you didn't go into business in the case of maybe the donut chain you work with, they didn't go into business to build business systems. They went into business to create probably really great donuts, make
That's
people
right.
smile, right? And so, that doesn't come as most people's first nature, I think, to be thinking about these other things, the tools and how we get people. The other thing I wanted to mention in that Gallup book, and if I'll maybe post it in the chat later once I can remember what it's called, but the number one thing that comes up with regards to, like, workplace problems is management,
Yeah.
right? So you have disengagement, which is directly tied to bad management. And bad management, in my opinion, and maybe you'll agree with me, is the lack of training for your
Oh,
team.
no. Yeah, yeah.
So,
If I don't have the coaching skills, if I don't have know how to deal with different workplace situations and coach and train my team, and there's going to be problems. Even tying into when I talked about freeze, fight, or flight, if I am not aware of, I talk about in my second book in Defensive Adversity, two important parts of the brain, the cortex and the limbic system. Our limbic system is what we're born with. It's our emotional brain. When we're functioning in our limbic system, our response to negative stimulus can be freeze, fight, or flight, or some combination of those. You can imagine that's not where you want to be in the workplace.
yes.
The other part of the brain is our cortex. The cortex does grow, transform, and evolve through time, through our life experiences, good and especially bad, through our education system, through training and development. So, what I look at is training and development can help people build their cortex muscles. So, when workplace situations happen, they're going to respond rationally using their cortex part of the brain, because I know how to do this because I was trained to do that,
Right.
or I was trained to be a leader. I know how to coach. I know how to deal with a difficult customer. I know how to give constructive feedback. If that structure isn't there and something happens in the workplace, the chance of freeze, fight, or flight in someone is going to come out, or it's going to manifest more often than not. So, fight might be anger, short fuse, impatience, taking control of a situation. Flight might be not dealing with it, right? Acting like it's not happening. Oh, I'm not seeing it. Freeze could be shutting down and not explaining your true thoughts of something. So, my point is, training a manager to be a manager, a leader, is imperative in how he or she shapes and leads his or her team. So,
Yeah.
and that training builds that cortex muscle, though, so they can respond properly with real world work environments, work situations. And that ties back into that Viktor Frankl quote as well, too, in between stimulus response. What I want to do is, through training, is help optimize between stimulus response what happens in the brain, whether it's simultaneous or whether I have some time to think through it. If I'm trained properly, something happens in the workplace, boom, I'm going to know how to handle that. I have a difficult employee, I'm going to handle that in a proactive, productive way, rather than losing my patience or getting angry or so on and so forth.
Sure. It's building that muscle memory too. And
Yep.
right? Like even with what we do, I mean, I'm in a little bit different aspect of the business because we're more focused on the technology around revenue systems. But when we originally built our first product back in the early 2000s, our founder, who was a chiropractor, was real focused on like how the body aligned and was it ergonomically correct, the way that people were moving, and what the muscle memory would look like if they were properly trained on how to use the product and the best ways to do that. So I think this is a really fascinating conversation, which I want to ask you about your books. You mentioned your books. Can you tell the audience a little bit about what you've done there?
Yeah, I'm actually a 3-time publisher, and my pride and joys are in defensive adversity and thrive in the face of adversity. So, both of these really hone in on that Viktor Frankl, the comment I made about cortex versus limbic system, and really understanding the base premise behind the book is adversity is meant to happen in our lives to help us grow, transform, and evolve into the people we're meant to become. So through that book, I give some facts about adversity, how people overcome it, what they ultimately become by overcoming it. Then I teach people to understand that brain dynamic that I talked about, cortex versus limbic system, which I actually learned from a martial arts coach. And then I tie that into understanding ourselves, understanding how we respond to adversity based on our personality style or our behavior style. Are you familiar with DISC?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm a
So
big fan.
yeah, the certified behavioral analyst, which you met, is DISC. So what I've done, I've tied DISC into how a person functions in their best state of mind and their worst state of mind by DISC, by the 3 DISC styles. So, if I'm a dominant style, I'm competitive, I get things done, I'm a go-getter. But on the negative side, that's the cortex part of the brain.
Sure.
If you're in the emotional part of the brain, you're a fighter. You get angry, you get short fused. So I connect the dots with the 4 disc styles. And when someone's functioning in the optimal brain set versus the emotional one, so they make better decisions, stimulus response. And then I have some real world ways, the skills people can use to self-reflect and reconnect themselves to learn from any situation, good and especially bad as well too. I subscribe to the fact that people can learn, you'll learn your greatest lessons from your failures, your defeats. That's where the greatest lessons lie. So I encourage people not to be afraid. As long as you're learning a lesson from adversity, from difficulties, from disappointment, then it's really not it's not a negative. It can be a positive, and that builds your cortex brain as well too. If I'm shielded from adversity, or if I'm shielding others from adversity, I'm not building their cortex muscle. And then when real world things happen, chances are these people are going to respond in an emotional state of freeze, fight, or flight, which is not productive. So
Yeah, I love that. I love that you brought up the inoculation to stress. Because a lot of times we don't want to mention that that's actually part of the job sometimes,
yeah,
right? Like, I mean, imagine being a firefighter or an EMT. Like, they definitely have to. And it's interesting that you brought up martial arts. That was something that taught me. I did. My husband and I used to own a gym, and he's a mixed martial arts coach, and
wow,
we did Krav Maga back in the early 2000s. And when I was training, I remember one time there was this. I was holding the pad for this big guy. He was huge. And he's like, should I go, light on her? And they were like, no, go ahead and give it to her. Right. And he punched the bag, and just I wasn't even upset. I mean, I agreed to it. It was totally consensual. Like, we were training, but my, I don't know what part of the brain you would call this, but my body's response was to cry. And he's like, "Are
that's
you?" And this poor guy was mortified. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm totally cool. I don't even understand why this is happening right now." But it's, as you said, the fight or flight. It was just the way that I responded. But the lesson that I learned there was that I had to inoculate myself to certain levels of stress in order to
yeah,
be successful in areas of my life. And it goes beyond, training for martial arts or self-defense. It's in our businesses, it's
yeah,
in training our teams, it's in dealing with people, our customers. If
right,
you are inoculated to the stress, you're going to make better decisions.
right.
And so this was 20 years ago, but that has been a lesson that I've learned and brought forward for many, many years. And maybe that was a failure, like you said, that I just learn't from, because here I let this
Absolutely.
big guy punch me full speed. But
Well, let your husband. I'm a Muay Thai practitioner. I don't know if you know what
nice.
that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Thai Muay Thai. Everything we're speaking on too, this ties into, because I taught the word in Thailand for Muay Thai fighters for relax is sabai sabai. So what I work with my coach on to help keep me in the cortex is I have him push me in very uncomfortable places, corner me, tire me out, overwhelm me.
Yes.
And what I'm trying to get him to do is help me learn how to stay calm with all this chaos, to see things in all this chaos. And it's hard as hell because, you're getting kicked,
Yes.
we're hard and stuff, but it's helping me translate sabai, sabai, thinking in the cortex, falling back on my training, falling back on all those things he taught me, and staying calm under pressure. And it's transferring from there into my business life too, because if you can stay calm while you're getting your butt beat and see things and work your way out of it, it's going to parlay into your personal life as well, or professional life as well too. One of my biggest clients, Stanley Black and Decker, they say we are in a VUCA world. Volatility, uncertainty, change, and ambiguity is the new norm. And so my premise is, if we can be more strategic thinking, more strategic leaders, think rationally rather than emotionally, that can be a point of differentiation for the leader and the organization, because we're in this VUCA world, which I totally agree with. So thinking logically, thinking rationally, only when we're thinking rationally, logically in our cortex part of the brain, are we going to be able to solve problems? Are we going to be able to see see a competitive advantage? Are we going to minimize conflict? Are we going to say the right things?
Yes.
Counter side, if we're in an emotional state, we're not going to be able to solve problems. We're going to create conflict. We may say things we soon regret later. So it's the importance of staying in that cortex part of our brain during these VUCA times, which will be, in my opinion, a point of differentiation.
Well, and I think a lot of what you're saying is resiliency, right? It's
Yep.
being resilient. And when you to me, I think being resilient is something that happens over time when you've been introduced to certain stresses. This is why it's so important to train managers, because that's what's going to keep them from being bad managers. I mean, nobody wants to be. My husband always has this saying when he's on stage. He says, "You could ask a thousand kids, not one of them's going to say I want to be managed
That's right.
when I
That's right.
grow up." Right? Nobody
Yeah.
wants that. But being resilient is something that we earn to some degree, like you're saying, through training, through practice, through understanding the different mindsets around adversity. I know in your book, one of the takeaways in your books is the defense of adversity. So I kind of love that we talked a little bit about self defense, because I think that's maybe along the lines of what you're talking about in this book. And you know, actually, would you elaborate on that? I'm real curious. The
Yeah,
defense
in
of
defense of
adversity.
adversity means I'm defending adversity. Adversity is
Yeah,
okay. It's
right.
okay to happen. It's brought into our lives to help us, again, grow, transform, and evolve. I mean,
Yeah,
let's just take something simplistic like lifting weights. Do we gain more muscle from curling 5 pounds or 50 pounds? More resistance creates better muscles. Do we build better
right.
endurance running with the wind or against the wind? That, I mean, Mother Nature is teaching us this lesson. One of my favorite quotes is, I can't even remember. It's a diamond. What's a diamond before it's a diamond? It's a piece of coal. The only
Yeah,
way the diamond is through friction and pressure. I think Mother Nature gives us its lessons in many ways, that through our adversity is how we become the people we were meant to become. So I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying I rush out and seek difficulties, but what I'm saying is two things. One, you can be sure adversity is going to happen. I mean, you can't hide from it. It is going to find you. That's number one. So accept that it's a part of life. Number two, acknowledge that it is a chance for me to grow, or a company to grow, or to learn a lesson. So if you take that attitude, this is important for a couple of reasons, especially the acceptance side. Remember what I said about the limbic system and the cortex, the rational brain versus the emotional brain. If I accept that adversity is a part of life, there's a higher opportunity for me to stay in that cortex versus me not accepting it. If something happens, I'm like, oh, Jesus, I'm already putting myself into a negative state.
right.
It's like, okay, here it is. Now what am I going to do about it? I either can fall back on training, I can fall back on education, I can fall back on past life experiences, or I can say, I'm going to learn a lesson from this moving forward. So that's all, so that's the importance of accepting that adversity is part of life. It transfers that ability to stay in the cortex versus immediately, going to
Respond.
that negative. Yeah, and
Yeah,
when we think about it, this is important not to allow yourself for that to happen, because if I get angry, I can't get on that unangry like that. I can all of a sudden say, "Oh, I'm not mad anymore." It may take time. I may say the wrong thing. I may make a bad decision. Same goes with shutting down, freezing, or hiding from some things. A lot of damage can be done in that time frame. And that's why you don't want that to happen in the first place. You want to keep that mind open and know that. And that's why I'm saying training is so important. Having a good strategic plan is so important. It gives people within an organization a foundation to fall back on to make wise decisions. I've been trained on this. It's in our policies and procedures. It's my KPI. It's what our vision, mission, and values said. If we're all falling back on these things we've been trained or communicated about, we're all going to function on it as a well-oiled machine. But if it's not created, it's not communicated, it's not taught, it's not reinforced, then you're going to have all these silos run in a lot of different directions.
Right. Well, I'm curious where you fall on the disc.
I'm a high, believe it or not, I'm a high S with some secondary D. So
Hmm.
I'm actually more of an introvert with a dominant style. And what's interesting when I talk about this cortex limbic system, when I was doing the research for my second book, In Defense of Adversity, and I was connecting the dots between the disc styles and those four. So basically, dominant styles are when they're in that emotional state, not the good state, when they're in emotional state.
Sure.
The dominant styles are fighters, influencers are flighters, steadiness styles are freezers, compliance styles are freezer fighters. And researching this and putting this all together really helped me because it spoke to me. This is exactly what happens to me when I fall in, when I get emotional. I shut down. That's my high S, a freezer. I internalize things. I don't say anything. I might nod my head like everything's okay, but my mind's going 18,000 miles an hour. Then my dominant style kicks in and Italian Steve comes out. Think about that. People are like, this guy's okay. He's calm, cool, collected. He seems fine. And boom, what the hell happened to Steve? I realize I do this. So what it's helped me do is learn I've got to communicate things that are bothering me or call it out or participate or give my 2 cents because if I don't, it's going to fester and that Italian Steve's going to come out. So it's helped me, and I talk about my book, understanding better our emotional triggers, our triggers and emotional responses. So what are those situations, events, or people who can set us into a state of freeze, fight, or flight? And how do I respond? Am I a freezer, fighter, or flighter? So through that knowledge, I'm going to be able to better self-manage. So hypothetically, let's say I have a really difficult customer who drives me nuts. I know he or she is a trigger for me, and I can mentally prepare for that and not allow that to happen. And then and I can manage that better. So am I perfect? No, I still step in my doo-doo. However, I don't step in my doo-doo as much, number one. Number two, when I do, I'm able to recognize it and get out of it faster, if that makes sense. I'm able to say, I'm shutting down. I'm not speaking my mind. I'm able to get out of that faster. So through understanding my triggers, responses, my disc style, I've been better able to stay in the cortex during VUCA type scenarios. So
Well, you know what? I really, I love this because I think that it's so, when you talk about investing in people and your team, one of the things that I really appreciate about DISC is I'm a high influencer, which I'm sure you probably could have guessed.
yeah,
A high influencer, but I'm married to a high driver or D.
yeah,
And not only did doing this assessment for my team and the people that I work with, and my husband is on the team that I work with. So, it made everything better in my life because as you said, you know what your triggers are, how somebody can trigger you, you're in better control of that. But one of the things that I loved about it is, and I we're bumping up on time because I think I could talk to you about this stuff all day.
good.
Is that when you understand where people are at, or even understand the different styles, then you have a lot more. This is a fantastic tool. This gives you so much more understanding of the people around you and that you're working with. Not only did it teach me how to talk to other people, but also being married to a high driver. There used to be, when he'd start coming in here and cracking the whip, and people would be like, "What's going on?" It allowed even the people who didn't like that, the stabilizers, the S's,
Yeah,
or even the analyzers, like pretty much everybody in all the other quadrants don't probably care for that, right? But it allowed us to even accept him,
exactly.
right?
Yep.
And I think it's so important. I think there's so much gold in what you're offering here and what you're teaching us today is that you need these tools. You need to understand each other. You need to understand where you're going emotionally, mentally, physically, because I think sometimes our emotional responses show up in all sorts of ways, right?
No doubt.
If you're managing people, you're gonna have hard times. And even if you're just dealing with customers and guests, that's inevitable.
Yep. Yep.
So understanding who you are, how you respond to things, and how someone might trigger you is super important. It's helped me a ton.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's raising your EQ. I talk a lot about EQ too. And three facets I talk about is intrapersonal skills, self-knowledge, interpersonal skills, knowledge of those people with whom you're engaging with, then situational awareness. It's how I and we will respond under various workplace scenarios. If I know if we're going through a change initiative, if I'm the leader, I'm going to know the styles of my team and what buttons to push to get them to accept the change initiative, even if they don't like that. So what we're talking about is also raising that emotional intelligence. Using DISC is one of those tools.
Yeah, and what a great thing to give to the people you work with, your team, the
Yep.
people who are out there serving your customers and, helping you move forward with your mission, whether you're an owner, operator, or somebody who's just assisting with the business. So thank you for so much for what you do, because I think humanizing the work experience is super important, especially in today's world.
Yep.
And even looking at the stress, I was fortunate a couple of years ago to get to hear from the founder of the Spartan races, and he made a really interesting point that a lot of people today, because everything is so easy today, and if we're being completely real, I mean, with AI, we didn't even get to touch on that.
Yeah.
There were so many things I wanted to ask you that we didn't get to talk about today. So that's always my sign. I got to have you back. We got to do this again so we can keep talking about that. But with AI and, you can have something delivered in 2 hours from Amazon with everything being so easy. One of the things that he talked about was inoculating ourselves to stress. This is why the Spartan race exists, because there are people out there going, I have to do hard stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
I have to go push myself. I mean, I got in from Miami. I told you earlier before the show I got in at 2 a.m. I had an appointment with my trainer at 9 o'clock this morning. And he's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm committed to this and it's hard. And, but it's important that we do hard stuff, because I'm going to be honest. Every morning I get up and I go lift weights. There's nothing that can come through my door that's as difficult.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it is super important that we understand these concepts, and I appreciate what you're bringing to the show today and your insights and knowledge. So thank you for being here.
No, thank you. And that's part, going back to that's part of my Muay Thai practice. If I showed people my shins now, they'd think I was nuts. But, I like being put in those uncomfortable positions, because if I can stay comfortable, and that's my new word now. I have a bunch of shirts. Remember this, Sabai, Sabai. It's Sabai, Sabai. And it means basically relax, relax. So be in that, even though you're in all this turmoil in a kickboxing match, how can you stay calm? And when you stay calm, your brain's functioning on all cylinders. You're going to be able to see how to counter and do all these things. And that translates in your personal and professional life as well, too, in the workplace. When you're dealing with these stress-filled situations, if you can stay calm, sabai, sabai, stay calm in that workplace, again, you can solve problems. You can be creative. You can say the right things. It is a point of differentiation in this world today. I truly believe that.
Yeah, well, I believe it too. And I'm a huge believer that comfort is a dream killer, right?
Yep.
You got to
Yep.
get uncomfortable sometimes, especially if you want to be great. So,
Yep.
get out there and do hard things, like you said.
Yep.
And it's better if we do it to ourselves, right? You're going and getting kicked in the shins. I'm going and getting my butt kicked by my trainer, who I'm
Yeah.
afraid of. So I make sure to show up every day and then check in with my cardio. I don't mess around, right? Because it's hard. So thank
Yep.
you for helping us understand how hard is an important part of being open to doing the things that are hard is an important part of what we do, and training your team is certainly hard. But
Yep.
people like you exist, and you can help guide and companies navigate through that. So before I let you go, if somebody is interested in doing this with you or contacting you or has questions about what we talked about today, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, shoot me an email or give me a call. My cell phone's 813-777-9414. My email address is real simple, Steve at symbol, my last name.com. That's probably not so easy. You can see it on the screen though, but Steve at Gavatorta.com. I'd also urge people to Google me. I have a ton of information out there, good content. If you want to see some good stuff on YouTube, a lot of the stuff we talked about today, you can get some free stuff up there on YouTube. Google me. You can see me on some TV events, other podcasts, webinars, and all that good stuff, and on TV actually. There's and get my books on Amazon too. Shameless plug. But
Please.
yeah, Google. You'll find anything you want about me and find a way to reach me as well too. But I love what I do. I'll tell people I don't work anymore because I love what I do. So if anyone has any questions on this, feel free to reach out, or I'd be happy to chat.
Hey, well, thank you for being here, Steve. I certainly appreciate you.
Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
Of course. We'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, if you guys are watching this show, I've got to say this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I think strategic resilience. We didn't get to cover all. I have so many questions for Steve. So I always say if that happens during a show where I don't get all my questions answered, that's just a reminder that this person has to come back because I'm sure, like me, you probably have more questions and things for Steve that would give you insights that'll help you be better at what you're doing. And if you're watching this show, I want to thank you today for one, what you're doing to invest in yourself by learning more about what you do, where you've got to go, the things that you can gain from having these tools, and the people out there who can help you. I love hosting this show because I get to meet people like Steve. I get to learn from people like Steve, and I know I'm getting better and better every single time. So I want to hear from you in the chat. If you're watching this on replay, hashtag replay, let us know that you were here. If you're on one of the podcast channels listening to us, please repost this. Let other people know that there's information out there like this, and you're just investing a little bit of your time listening to a show like this and getting yourself knowledge and tools to be better at what you do. And I really, really appreciate Steve coming on the show. Thank you to everybody who joined us. And a quick last shameless plug for our sponsor, Gatemaster Technology, your trusted name in attraction management software. And don't forget, they've got their competitive. I was going to say repetitive, but this is the me getting tongue tied. We've got our competitive replacement program. So if you've got a clunky, chunky system that's not performing for you, that's creating frustration for your team and your guests, and listen, guys, tool fatigue is real. When we help attractions, we usually replace anywhere between 3 and 6 systems that your team is having to learn and manage. And I'm pretty sure you're probably putting them into fight or flight when they got to deal with problems they don't understand or things they don't know how to deal with simply because the technology is not doing what it was meant to do for you. You guys have a lot of hard work ahead of you when you are running these attractions. And at Gatemaster Technology, we know how hard you work, and we work with you. Our software works as hard as you do. So please visit us, gatemaster.info/replacement for your free competitive replacement discovery call and quote. We're going to meet or beat whatever you're paying right now. So that's my offer to you. This is exclusive to this show. Head over to gatemaster.info/replacement. And I'm your host of the Live with Sondra show. Thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for listening. Thank you to the team who puts all of this together. Thank you to the audience that makes this possible for your support. And to all of our amazing guests like Steve, who keep showing up and sharing just gold with all of you. We'll see you guys on the next Live with Sondra.